Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So we are finally live. It took a couple of minutes for us to start the session because we were waiting for others to join in as well. But yes, I see that it's 160 of you with us today. So I would like to welcome all of you to this session on presenting like a pro. I hope you are aware of the Teams uh, this application that we are using. If not, if you look at the top of the window, you would see a Q&A button where you can feed in your questions if you have any around the topic that we are covering today. You would also see a React icon, React button. When you click on it, you have different React icons, which you can use to interact with me throughout the session because your mics would be disabled because it's a large number of learners that we have here today. All right, so I would like all of you to use the React buttons and maybe give me a hearts or a thumbs up so that we know that all of you are able to hear me clearly and we are good to get started. Okay, not the hand raise. Raise is different and React is different, right? So go to React instead of raise, because even if you raise your hand, you would not really be able to share a point with me as your mic is muted. Okay, great. I see some reactions coming in. Thumbs, hearts. Great, awesome. Sounds good. Well, again, I'm happy to have you here and happy to be presenting this particular session to you and taking you through these points that we're going to cover today on presentation skills primarily. Right. But yes, before we get started, a quick introduction from my end. My name is Vivek Pal, and I have been a trainer, a facilitator primarily into the field of soft skills, power skills, leadership skills for around 15 years now. That's the overall tenure of my career. I've worked with multiple organizations from startups to multinational organizations, right? So as I mentioned, 15 years as a trainer, there's a lot of time that I've spent on developing the content, building the presentation, right, and delivering the sessions, and not just sessions, the other kind of presentations as well. Let it be a pitch document, let it be an executive summary, right? So there's a lot of work that I've done when it comes to presentations. There's a lot of time that I've spent on PowerPoint as a tool, and I actually kind of love it, because it's got so much features in it. There is so much that you can attain through PowerPoint. So I love creating some of these presentations as well. And of course, this being my bread and butter, I would love to share everything that I've learned over the years and help you also improve upon your presentation skills, right? So that's a brief about me. I would also like to know you a little bit. Again, we're going to use the React buttons for this, right? So my questions are around the presentation skills itself and how many opportunities you have to present, right? So do we have folks who present on a regular basis? Give me a thumbs up if we do. Do you work with PowerPoint presentation day in and out, and you need to present to your stakeholders, your clients, your bosses regularly? Okay, I do see some of the hands going up, some of the thumbs going up as well. How about the others? Do we have people who are just the beginners and you're picking up on presentation skills? Maybe there is you have joined a new team where now you need to start working on your presentation skills. Give me a thumbs up if you do. I do see some hands raised. That's great. Perfect. Absolutely. I'm sure it is a good mix of people who come with good amount of experience, and then we also have people who are mostly starting off on this journey. And trust me, you're going to enjoy when you get to that stage of presenting and putting across your ideas confidently, right? Okay, with that, let's get started. Again, I'm sharing my screen, and I'm also toggling between the presentation and the chat window and your reactions. So in case I miss any of the comments, please do not mind. And if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A section. All right, let's get started then. So present like a pro is what we're going to take a look at today, right? And I would like to start with a quick trivia. So the question for you is, what is the most common fear that people have? And you have three options that you see on the screen, right? Pick one and send your message in the chat window. All right, I see 1 and 3 primarily coming through. A couple of you are saying 2 as well, but mostly 1 and 3. All right, great. Keep the answers coming. Okay, perfect. Great. Well, awesome. I see that a lot of you've selected a 1 or a 3, but please don't shoot me for this. I did not even display the correct answer over here. And the whole point of doing that is the answer to this question is the fear of public speaking, right? And you might not believe it, but it is absolutely, absolutely true. There are numerous surveys done, there are numerous studies done. And when it comes to the most common fear that people have, it is not death. It is not snakes. It is not the fear of heights. It is public speaking, right? So there are multiple surveys done. Some say 60% people say that they are fearful of speaking in public. Some say 75% of people feel so. And I would like to ask you, do you have this nervousness, this fear when it comes to public speaking? Give me a yes in the chat window instead of the react icons this time. Absolutely. It is natural. It is absolutely natural, right? It is not a skill that you're born with. It is not something which the schools kind of teach, right? You do have extracurricular activities where you need to participate and present sometimes, but then they don't really teach you these skills. They don't really help you build these skills slowly, correct? So that's why it is obvious for us to have the nervousness. The nervousness also is there because when you're standing in front of a few people, or let's say an audience, you are thinking they are judging you. The audience is judging you. You feel you're doing something wrong. You feel you've said something wrong. And all those small mistakes that you might have made, or the things that you forgot to say that you had prepared, right? That's what plays a trick with your mind. And we all feel nervous. It's absolutely natural, right? But of course, the key is to prepare better, to plan better, so that you're able to deliver better, right? It's not something that you can just go do, stand in front of an audience impromptu. That also is a skill which you develop over time, but it takes preparation. All right, so that's what we're going to cover today in the session. So let me take you through this. Now, the objectives that we are going to cover today are, of course, take a look at the structure of effective presentations. As I said, preparation is the key. So when you understand how to structure your presentations, it helps you to develop these presentations better and prepare yourself better. Second, we are going to take a look at how to enhance the delivery skills across different settings. Now, when I say different settings, of course, we are speaking of in-person presentations, which are less likely to happen nowadays, more of virtual presentations. So we will talk about presenting on in virtual setting, right? And another area that we're going to cover through this is the different kind of presentations that you need to deliver, right? You have sessions that you deliver, you have elevator pitches that you need to pitch to your bosses to get approvals. You also have some analysis data that you need to share on a presentation, maybe reports. I'm sure that's one kind of, that's a common kind, right? And it could also be an executive summary that you need to send to some of the senior executives in your organization, right? So different settings will cover all of those. And of course, building confidence and presentation delivery. Everything else that we're going to cover in the session will help you achieve point number 3. All right, so what say? Are you excited? Good to see what I have in store for you. Perfect. Awesome. So we're going to start with a quick video that I have for you. Oh, yeah, before that, let me tell you how we're going to cover it, right? So there are 3 areas that we will cover, and this is something that I have developed as um, a plan for myself over the years, right? The three areas that I focus on while working on a presentation are number one, planning. Planning is important from thinking about what I'm going to talk about, right? What goes into the presentation, all of that is in planning stage. Then actually building it, this depends on the tool that you use. The most common one, of course, is PowerPoint presentations. So that's what we pick here to build the presentation. And then when it comes to delivering the presentation, we'll take a look at the different aspects that you need to keep in mind while delivering the presentation to deliver this, right? So again, three areas: plan, build, and deliver. If you're able to crack these three, your presentation skills would be top notch. Okay, another question for you. Is there anyone who comes to your mind when we talk about great presentations? And I would like responses to come in the chat window. It could be a celebrity, it could be, okay, I think a name that I was expecting, Steve Jobs, which comes right off. And a lot of you have already quoted his name. Tim Cook as well, absolutely. Modi ji, amazing orator. Obama was an amazing orator. Yeah. Okay. Priyanka Chopra, Majumdar Shah. Okay. Perfect. Great. Simon Sinek, absolutely. He is an amazing and quite captivating speaker. Great, great. Some amazing names coming through. Of course, I do not know all of them. Sadhguru, yes. Brilliant ideas that he shares and the way he shares them. Pichai, absolutely. Great. Nityananda, yeah. Okay, perfect. Amazing. Good names that have come through. And of course, some of the names I do not know, which I will go back and check. But thank you so much for sharing them. I do have a video of Steve Jobs for you because he was a legend of sorts when it comes to presentations. And you know how Apple products are really presented. It's a legacy that he created, which has continued so far. And I'm sure it will continue to lead that way. And this is one of the reasons why Apple products are really, they kind of stand out because of the way they are presented. Uh, and it's an amazing, brilliant marketing technique, right? So let's take a look at Steve Jobs' presentation when he introduces the iPod, right?
Well, today we're introducing three.
Okay, it's not the iPod, it's the Apple one, the first phone that they launched. Yeah, there you go.
Today we're introducing three revolutionary products of this class. The first one is a widescreen iPod with touch controls. The second is a revolutionary mobile phone. And the third is a breakthrough internet communications device. So, three things: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not three separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. And here it is.
All right. So, okay, I do see there was some lagging, not working properly, can't hear. Okay, I do understand the volume on the video was a little low, I guess, but were you able to hear the video to a certain extent? And thank you for sharing the link, Naushad. You can definitely go back and check that link out. I do see yeses coming from quite a few, right? So, well, if we have to take a look at how Steve Jobs presented, it's not like he spoke a lot, right? It was those key messages that he focused on. He definitely used humor, and there, it was those three things that he was talking about, correct? With reiteration, with a lot of focus, the presentation was also minimal, and there was all about how he presented it, correct? And that's what presentation skills are all about. And that's what we're going to take a look at. So let's continue with that. Focus on the first area, which is planning a presentation. Okay. Now, when it comes to planning a presentation, it's all about how you mind map your ideas, how you give it a flow, which depends on quite a lot of factors. Can some of you send me some points that you would think about when you're planning a presentation? What do you think about while planning a presentation? Okay, homework, but what's about audience? Absolutely, Bharat. Yes, target audience. What is their background, the facts that you want to cover? All right. Is the story that you want to build in. Okay, the content comes a little later, absolutely. Data, topics, time, that's very important. How much time do you have? Do you have 5 minutes to present or you have 5 hours to present, right? Okay, identify the key message. That is absolutely important. What it is that you want your audience to take away from the session. Keeping it simple and short, yes, primarily plays a role when you're building it. In this planning phase, you primarily focus on outlining what it is that you're going to include in the presentation that you build, what it is that you're going to talk about when you meet the audience, the target audience that you have, right? So, what is the purpose? I think this is something that we kind of missed out. But you did mention the key takeaways, which is the purpose, right? So, think about the purpose of the presentation. Is it a knowledge sharing presentation where you want your learners to retain most of the information that you shared? Because then how you structure it is going to be absolutely different from, let's say, when you're presenting to CEOs, right? When you present to CEOs, you need to keep it very crisp. You maybe can just use one or two slides at the max, and you mostly would have 5 to 10 minutes to the max to share your ideas, right? They don't have time to get into the details. So the purpose of your presentation decides everything else that you do about your presentation, right? What content you include, what data points you need to mention, how do you want to structure it, what mode you want to use for the presentation, right? So all of these gets decided by the purpose. And I think some of you did mention um, the where your audience comes from in terms of their knowledge levels. That's also important, right? If your audience is technically sound about the subject that you're presenting on, you don't really need to get into the details. You don't really need to pacify them maybe by explaining simple topics, by defining simple things, right? And at the same time, you can use some of those technical terms. But if you're talking about the same topic with an audience that is new and does not know anything about the topic, then you need to explain everything in terms, in layman terms, like you're talking to a 5-year-old, right? So purpose of the presentation absolutely decides what you do. The purpose also is whether you want your audience to take an action based on your presentation. Are you pitching an idea and you want your audience to kind of approve it, right? So all these are your purposes, and this is where you start from. All right. Now, the next thing that you consider is how much time do you have? That's another absolutely important aspect to focus on. How much time do you have? If you have just 5 to 10 minutes, you would definitely want to keep it very, very crisp, talk about just the main things, and move on to the action or the key takeaways that you want your audience to have from the session. But if you are taking, let's say, a session which is 2 hours long, then you need to make it engaging in a different way, correct? Because people don't have that kind of attention span anymore. We lose our attention every few seconds, forget minutes. right? So that's the reason why you need to keep the content very engaging. If you are going for longer presentations, you mostly have to include activities, you mostly have to include questions, you need to build conversations, and that's how you would be able to make it a more engaging presentation where people take something away from it. All right. So that's number two, how much time. Number three aspect that you should keep in mind is, of course, who your audience is, right? So, audience, how senior are they? How much do they already know about the topic? Correct. Are you presenting to someone that you have not met before? Are you presenting to someone who works with you very closely, maybe your colleagues, right? So audience also matters a lot because this helps you decide how you're going to engage with them, what kind of questions you can expect coming your way, right? What kind of questions you're going to ask, how to start your presentation, correct? So audience is understanding of the audience is also very important. Now, I would like to ask you this question. How would you go about understanding your audience if you have to for any presentation? What are some of the things that you can do? Please send your responses in the chat window. What are some of the things that you would do to understand your audience? Okay, ask questions. You will try to understand what their age range is, what education they come with. Okay, Q&A. All right, good. Engage. Okay, understand the location. Great. Seniority survey. You can absolutely send a quiz in case your kind of presentation allows that. Okay. Body language, job profile. Absolutely, right? So you can understand your audience by looking at some of these aspects. You can go to LinkedIn and understand who are these people who are attending, what kind of experience they come from. Uh, and if you did not have enough time to do any kind of background check, it's always good to start with a conversation to understand your audience better. I just tried a small piece of that. Of course, if it was interactive, we could do more. If you could just come off mute, we could talk more about things. But when I asked you the kind of experience you come with when it comes to presentation skills, right? That's how you try to get to know your audience right at the beginning. And that also helps you build some rapport with them and helps you with the nervousness that we all feel, the jitters that we feel in the in the stomach. Okay, so it's absolutely important to understand the audience because it is key. All right, moving on. What method to choose? So what we're looking at is some of the questions that you would ask yourself, which will help you plan your presentation better. So my question to you now is, what mode would you choose for your presentation? What method would you choose? So what are the various methods available for you to pick from? Can you send me in the chat window? Okay, virtual or in person. All right. Okay, virtual. Okay, data driven. All right. Activity driven. Got it. So these are some of the things that you would infuse your presentation with. But let's talk about the tools that you can use. Let's talk about the method that you can use. An example of that would be PowerPoint presentation, right? So is it necessary for you to build a PPT every time? No, right? I see a lot of yeses coming in. A lot of you are saying no. Miro, that's an amazing example. Miro is a collaboration tool where you can do the presentations, right? People also build these on Canva sometimes. But yeah, there are a couple of other examples that have come in. Storytelling, that could be interesting. You just have a conversation with maybe some videos or some media to show in between to, uh, you know, you can say support what you're saying with the data sets, right? It could be an interactive session where you're actually having a conversation and then you build in the activities, you build in the questions and answers, the quizzes, instead of really having something on the PowerPoint presentation. So the point here is it's not always necessary to go in with a PowerPoint presentation. And that's a question that you need to ask yourself when you are working on a presentation. Do you really need to build a PowerPoint presentation? Of course, in our world, PPTs are very commonly accepted, right? Especially when you are in a virtual environment, if people have something to look at, it's good. But there's an alternative, right? You can open Miro and have all of them, all your audience to work together on something. And it would also be good to maybe have people come on video, right? That also helps you have that conversation. It helps you build that interaction instead of just looking at the PowerPoint presentation. All right. So that was the point. The whole thing is Kahoot is another very good example to run some of those quizzes, some of those activities for your audience. All right, great. Okay, so do ask yourself this question when you're planning a presentation, what method you're going to choose. All right, and the last one, stage the presentation. Now, this is where you need to start to understand where it's happening, right? You need to get to the point of practicing and rehearsing and just feeling the vibe of the room, right? So when we talk about staging the presentation, um, we are looking at in-person presentations and we're looking at virtual presentations, all right? Now, when it comes to in-person presentations, how can you really go and feel the room is actually going to the room, right? You need to maybe reach the venue a little early, be there, use the projector. You need to check whether the technical aspects of your presentation are working fine. You need to anticipate questions that will come your way and the objections that might come your way from the kind of audience that you're going to speak to, right? So these are some of the aspects that you need to focus on when it comes to staging the presentation. Also, some of the other things that you would do to again rehearse is um, understand the room, right? When you're in a room, it matters a lot as to how you move, where you're standing, where is the projector, where is your audience going to sit? Do you want to change the way they're sitting? Correct. So all of that matters a lot. And for that, you need to actually go to the room, try to visualize how this presentation is going to go, and that helps you a lot. When it comes to virtual presentations, of course, some of the tools that you use are Teams, Zoom, there could be some other applications like WebEx, and all of them have different kind of technicalities built into them. So it's absolutely important to understand what are the tools of engagement on these applications. For example, Teams allows you the React icons, but Zoom does not have that feature, right? Similarly, the way you can share a part of your screen on Zoom, you cannot do that in Microsoft Teams, right? Teams allows you to upload a live presentation where people can take control of the presentation and move through, but Zoom does not allow that, right? So there are these different aspects, these different features that you need to understand when it comes to understanding the application that you're using, right? Um, a lot of times when you are sharing a presentation, you do tend to forget switching on the sound. So that's another aspect that we need to really explore. So there are so many nuances that go into using any application, and it's important for you to go through that. You need to understand the tool, and then based on the flow that you have decided, you need to rehearse on this. Okay. Now, when it comes to rehearsing the presentation, and of course, you've not built your presentation so far, but you need to think about rehearsal right at the beginning so that you can plan your rehearsal while you're building the presentation, right? So once your presentation is ready and it's rehearsal time, what I suggest is that you rehearse with the slideshow on, right? You also should try to rehearse with some sort of timing kept in mind. And it's always good to maybe stand and rehearse because that kind of brings in the energy level that you require for your actual presentation. Okay. Now, another aspect that you need to remember is while rehearsing, a lot of times when you're rehearsing, and let's say your presentation is an hour long, when you're rehearsing, after 15 minutes, you feel there is a mistake that you made and you want to correct it. I would request you not to do that, right? It's better to rehearse the entire presentation in a single go each time you're rehearsing. That will help you keep the flow together. Another important aspect of rehearsal is, of course, it builds a natural flow in your mind So a lot of times when, because of nervousness, you forget something, right? Um, the natural flow kind of takes over, and you are able to move beyond that hurdle that you faced, right? It's also good to present and practice this out loud on slideshow, as I mentioned. And this again helps you listen to yourself while you're speaking out loud, and helps you memorize helps your subconscious brain to kind of memorize the flow and the points that you're covering. And again, that builds in a natural flow over here. All right. So rehearsal, of course, is important. And I would like to talk just a little bit more about this, and would like to ask you guys, how do you go about rehearsing? Any specific methods that you use for your presentations? Send your responses in the chat window. Yogesh, that's a very good question. Let's talk about it right after people have answered this question that I asked. Okay, in front of mirror, absolutely, Sahil. That's a good way. Okay. Oh, Pavan Kumar says record and play back. Great, great. Help of colleague. Yes, if you can have colleagues actually listen to your presentation, nothing like it. With family and friends, absolutely. Teams itself. All right. Great. Now, out of all of these suggestions, record and playback, trust me, it is the most powerful one, right? Because when we talk about presentation skills, there is a lot that you already know. But because of that nervousness in that moment, because maybe you're not really listening to yourself while you are focusing on your audience and presenting your ideas, it becomes difficult to give yourself feedback, right? So when you record yourself and you watch yourself in that recording, trust me, you would learn the most, more than what you will learn listening to any of these sessions, any of this kind of webinar that you're attending today, right? So it's absolutely important for you to try this, give it a shot. I know not a lot of us enjoy watching ourselves in the camera and listen to our own voice, but it is the most powerful thing that you can do to rehearse. Okay. So give it a shot, because when you watch your own video, right, and you go beyond that barrier of, hey, I sound so bad, I look so bad, right? When you go beyond that barrier, it's all about noticing even the smallest of the things that you could do better. It could be just your expression, it could be where you were looking, right? It could be what you said, it could be maybe you'll be able to notice one of those fillers that you use, which you're not able to realize when you just listen to yourself talking, right? Okay, so recording and watching yourself in the video is an absolute game changer, right? Perfect. Sahil, you also mentioned listening to your own voice as audio. It is a big task, yes, but it's a barrier that you need to go beyond, and it will change the whole game for you. All right. Great. Okay, so that's rehearsal. And with that, let's move on to the second section of the topic. And of course, since we just have an hour, we're just going to touch upon some of these topics, some of these key areas, and not be able to delve into how to really do some of this, right? But yes, before we move ahead, uh, a question that was asked in the chat window, how to choose the method. So any answers to that question? How would you choose the method? Should you go for PPT? Should you maybe just go for storytelling? Just use Miro? How would you choose this? Any ideas? Okay, let me answer that for you. So, well, number one, purpose of your presentation is where it starts from, right? If you know the purpose of your presentation is, let's say, team bonding, right? You would not want to use a presentation. No one likes presentations in team bonding exercises. Purpose of your presentation is to maybe train new hires, new members in your team. You might want to use the real application, right, by sharing your screen instead of taking them through a presentation. Purpose of your presentation is, let's say, sales. Over there, PPTs can actually do a wonderful job presenting your ideas when you use charts, when you talk about those data points, right? So it's important to use PPTs for sales. It when it's some sort of a session which is more conversational, engaging, just talking to people, right? You don't need any of these methods. You just pick up on different things. Maybe you can say, hey, I would like to show you a video, share your screen, play it on YouTube. or if you have it saved in your laptop, and that does the job, right? So these are some of the aspects that you think about to decide what method you want to pick for your presentation, right? And again, it's up to you, your call at the end. Whichever you feel you would be able to deliver the best with, go for that. The one that you feel comfortable with, go for that, right? End of the day, your agenda is to be able to make your audience either take that action, take back the key takeaways that you have for them from your presentation, right? Or be able to sell something to them, correct? So these are some of the agendas that you have when you present. Maybe you want them to make a decision. So that's another thing that you would consider while you think about the method. Okay, perfect. Great. With that, let's go ahead. And I have another question for you on the slide, if you can take a look at it. How much time should you spend on planning phase? We can talk in terms of the percentage, right? Let's say you're spending 5 hours on the overall preparation, building, and presentation itself. So, how much time should you spend on planning phase? Okay, depends on the topic. 2 times of presentation duration. All right, great. 3 hours out of five, 30%. Okay, 49. That's a very specific number. 70%. Great, great. 90%. Okay, perfect. It is subjective. It absolutely is subjective, right? But yes, an estimate would be, and this again is based on uh, the aspect that you are working on planning the presentation, building it, and delivering it yourself. Uh, I would suggest, from my experience, anywhere between 50 to 75% is a good amount of time to spend on planning phase. Because, and I'll tell you why. Um, a lot of times when you pick up a PPT and you start to create your presentation, you feel that you're not able to get that flow, right? So it's always good to mind map before you start to work on the presentation. Now, how do you mind map? You can pick up a piece of paper, pen and paper, just jot down your thoughts, make sense out of what you want the audience to take away based on these questions that we have just asked ourselves, right? Jot down your thoughts. This will help you align the flow of your presentation. You'll be able to decide the topics, the data points that you want to include, make logical sense out of those topics in that flow, and that's how it will help you. Great question, Nitya. What is mind mapping? Mind mapping is simply bringing all of it together and putting it down in a very clear, structured flow, right? That's what mind mapping is. Keeping the aspects like the purpose, the time, and all of that in mind, thinking about what all facts, what all areas you want to cover in your presentation, and what actions you want your audience to take away by the end of the session, right? So that's what mind mapping is. Okay, so that's what I would say. 50 to 70% of your time is what you spend planning, and then rest of it building. Once you have your mind map ready, it would be very easy for you to put the PPT together or your presentation together in terms of the method that you've chosen, and practice and deliver. All right, perfect. Let's go ahead. The second section, which is building a presentation. Let's focus on this now. Now, when it comes to building a presentation, I know we spoke of the methods, but for this section, let's keep PowerPoint presentation as our method for now, because most of us use it. We understand PowerPoint presentation. So let's use that to go through this section in detail. All right. Now, number one, structure of your presentation. So any ideas on how your presentation should be structured? Can you divide it into 4 to 5 or 3 to 4 different sections? Yes, Sahil, best way to create PPT. Absolutely. So the best way is to mind map. The moment you have mind mapped away from PPT on a piece of paper, right, or maybe Word file or Excel, it would be very easy for you to just create this by picking up a theme. All right. Okay, content and context, content and conclusion. I like that, Pratap. Context, content and conclusion. Triple C. Intro, agenda, actual content, Q&A. Okay. Overview, plan of action, summary, agenda, data points, summary, Q&A. Great. I love the answers. I love the answers. Sahil, best tool for saving time. So I know there are these AI tools which have come out, and I've tried a couple of them. They don't give you that kind of presentation as of now. The best tool still would be PowerPoint presentation itself to really build it. Okay. Title, agenda, intro of PPT, content, conclude, Q&A, thank you. Okay. All right. Great, great. Agenda, main content, key takeaways. Great. I think all of us are pretty much aligned. I would like to just mention three key areas to focus on, three key sections to divide your PPT in. Now, when you start your content, right, you need to grab your audience's attention. And to do that, a hook is going to help you to start your presentation with. Of course, we speak of the introduction, the agenda, which is good, the reference, the context, all of that is good. But before that, because your agenda, your objectives, that becomes a part of the hook, it's good to maybe crack a joke right at the beginning, or maybe ask a interesting question for people to start thinking about the topic already. It could be a story that you share, a small anecdote that people can relate to. You could quote an incident that happened because of which this is important, right? So a hook is something which grabs your audience's attention, and it could be in any form. Maybe a quotation if you feel the audience is going to take it, right? So based on the audience, what you feel will work as a hook, you pick it up and start your presentation with that. Then you move on to the content of the body, where you are breaking it down into different sections. You're talking about what, why, how, and all the history and geography of your subject. And then you close it with action and key takeaways. Now, remember how Steve Jobs presented it? There was reiteration. So after every section, especially if your presentation is a little lengthy, it's good to again talk about what is the key takeaway from this section. Next section, what is the key takeaway from this section? And towards the end, sum it all up, circle it back to the agenda that you quoted at the beginning, because the whole thing has to come together for your audience to make sense out of this, right? Think about your audience, that they have to listen to you. They're looking at something probably, and they have a lot of distractions going on around them. Their phones, pings, messages, right? So it's always good to keep a logical sense so they are capturing it at subconscious level as well, right? So that's how you would structure it: a hook, key takeaway, and action items or key takeaways from the presentation. Okay. Now, there's another thing that you need to remember: the rule of three. If you can, and again, this is a little subjective, but if you can, and sometimes this does become challenging, but if you can limit to 3 points, three key takeaways, or three objectives at the beginning, right? That is the best. Just three sections of your PPT, your overall content. That is the best thing that you can do with the structure of your presentation. And the reason behind this is, again, going back to the attention span, going back to how much our brain can retain as information naturally, right? So they say anything beyond 6 points is just something which people would not really register, right? It will not remain in their brain after your presentation. Six is also quite a lot. So the magic number is three. And if you think about a lot of things in nature, a lot of things that we speak of, they all occur in three, correct? And that's the rule of three that we should follow. Yeah. A quick example that comes to my mind is this old Hindi movie, Amar Akbar Anthony, right? And you would see so many other examples of this, of three, because that number kind of hits your brain and it stays with you, right? So stick to three. If you can wrap it up in three, it's perfect. Death by presentation. Let's talk a little bit about this. Has any one of you gone through a presentation where you kind of feel, what is that PPT, right? I mean, there is just so much text on it. There are so many things to digest, uh, from what you see on the screen, and then you just don't feel like reading what's there. Have you gone through that? Yeah. I see a couple of questions on how much content should be there on one slide. We'll quickly pick it up. And I also see Diganta saying a pyramid principle is something that you can use. Absolutely. So for people who are wondering what pyramid principle is, it's more like you um, talk about one key takeaway, which is right at the top, and then you support it with the facts and your findings. This works really well, especially when you are presenting something data driven. So you can bring in the pyramid principle, combine it with the hook, content, and key takeaway approach, and it makes a lot of sense. Okay. Great. Yes, lengthy presentations, some technical presentations are like that. Probably my students. All right, Samir. I hope this session is helping you with that. Um, so yes, when you have a lot of details on PPT, and I know this particular interaction is a webinar, so we can't make it engaging. But if I could, I would have built in a lot of those quick activities, quick questions at every point of time where we can do more of a conversation instead of just one-sided monologue, right? So death by presentation is absolutely a fact when it comes to today's world. There are so many PPTs that we deal with, right? So you need to avoid this. How can you avoid it? Make sure that your PPT, the slide itself, does not have a lot of content on it. Again, just 3 to 6 on one slide is good enough, right? 3 to 6 points. Make sure everything that you're talking about is in bullet points, because that's what is easy for people to read while you're taking them through it. Again, use animation to bring up one point at a time so that you can emphasize on that point and talk about it, and people are not lost reading something else other than what you're presenting, right? How much content to keep on one slide? 3 to 6 points is what is recommended. Six, the maximum. Do not go beyond six. If it's going beyond six, break it down into 2 slides and talk through that, right? Again, bullet points. Make sure that the text is big enough, the font is big enough for people to read through this, right? There is also the color aspect that we need to think about when it comes to the presentations. So the colors have to be kind of contrasting. Yeah, that's something that we need to keep in mind. Now, if you have, let's say, some sort of a gray box, and on that, it's a little darker shade of gray, and on that you put black text, it is going to not be legible to the people who are looking at it, right? So it's important for you to keep the contrast in mind. If the background is lighter in color, use the darker shade. If the background is darker in color, use the lighter shade, right? Do not mix gray to gray too much between the background and the text. Gray, white, white, black, that's how you do it. Now, when it comes to using the colors in your presentation, other colors, there are these color palettes that people talk about, right? You have primary colors, you have secondary colors. And again, the rule of three holds good for that as well. If you can stick to just three colors throughout your presentation and create like a theme, it does not look very distracting to the audience. It gives you that appeal of being a little colorful as well. And you would be able to express different things through those colors. And that's another important aspect. Okay, great. Let's quickly check if there's something else that we need to quickly take a look at here. Great. How about visual representations? How about media? Do you think it's a good idea to use pictures, videos, and charts and graphs on your presentations? Give me a yes in the chat window if you feel so. Yes, all of you say yes, absolutely, right? Because if it's just the text, it is it is not something that you want to read. It's just like one of those books which we were never interested in till they have the images and nice colorful images in there, right? So visual aids is absolutely important to bring your presentation to life. Now, when it comes to virtual presentations, and let's talk, I think we'll talk about that a little later when it comes to delivering the presentation. But yes, visual aids which are available for you here on this as well is something that you can use. So if you go to the right, you know, right bottom corner of the screen on Teams when you're presenting, you have the option to use a highlighter, correct? Laser pointer. So I can use a laser pointer instead of just the cursor because cursor disappears uh, after a few seconds. So if you want to highlight a point, you can always use a laser pointer and use this, correct? So some of these tools which are built in on the application that you're using are also very useful for visual aids to be, to be used as visual aids. Okay, now another fact for you is 75% of the people are visual learners, and they absorb the most amount of information when they are watching something which appeals the eye, right? So it's important for you to use visual aids to bring life to your presentation. Okay, let's move on to the last point, right, where we are going to talk about delivering the presentation. So I have a question for you. Who is the presentation? I think some of you might have already seen the answer. Who is the presentation? Right? It is not the PPT deck that you have prepared. It is not the tool that you're going to use. The actual presentation is you, correct? So focus on how you are delivering the content, how you're engaging with the audience, instead of maybe just making the PPT look the most beautiful in the world, right? So with that, let's take a look at some of the delivering a presentation points when it comes to actual delivery. So the first point, of course, is grabbing your audience's attention. And how can you do this? Making it conversational. If you can start off with a little bit of conversation right at the beginning, nothing like it. That helps you feel less nervous. That helps your audience also feel a little less judgy in that context, right? And you would be able to sail through your presentation after that. Plus, you have their attention, right? Asking a question right at the beginning is also brilliant to really grab their attention. Now, other than these, how you really present yourself throughout the session makes a lot of sense, makes a lot of difference, right? In terms of where in the room are you standing? If you are taking the session virtually, I would like to demonstrate a couple of things for this, right? So let me go back to the Teams window. Let's say if my camera was set up like this, would you really be able to really focus on what's going on? Not really, right? So always make sure where you are positioned on the camera screen is it matters a lot, right? So you work on that a little bit. Do not sit too close to your laptop. Do not sit too far away so it looks like you're taking it from another city, right? Also, if you have some sort of a noisy surrounding, make sure that you use headphones, right? So all of these matter quite a lot. What's your background? You have so many options to use backgrounds, and if you feel the background is not really something which will which might distract people, it's good to use one of the background images. So these are some of the aspects that you can use to make sure that your audience's attention is with you, right? Okay, with that, let's go ahead. Let's take a look at the next point. Now, pauses, questions, and humor are your friends. And you might have seen this in Steve Jobs' video. Pauses and humor, he used that brilliantly. When you know when to pause before you bring up an important point, and when you use humor at the right places, which is not directed to your audience, right? It is generic in nature, which everyone's going to enjoy, and maybe about yourself sometimes, not in a demeaning way. It always lightens up the mood and you have your audience's attention because they see that, you're someone who's witty with the humor. And of course, it engages them. Yeah. Perfect. Let's talk about verbal and non-verbal skill cards as well. Basically, non-verbal and verbal skills. Where are you looking when you're presenting, right? So let's start from the gaze itself, okay? So when you're presenting virtually, I know it is distracting. You need to look at the screen, you need to look at people's videos, but it's always good to look at the camera from time to time. So switch between the camera. the others videos that you see and the PPT. Correct. Again, do not maybe look up all the time and then talk. It's good to meet the eye. If you're in an in-person session, the trick is to start from left. Whoever is sitting towards your left, look at them just for a few seconds, move to your right slowly, move to your right, right, and then move all the way to the right hand side of your room. Correct. So this will help you maintain that gaze. Again, don't keep staring at one person. Don't be too fast with this movement, but slow. Look at this person, move on, 5 seconds each, 10 seconds each, and that helps you maintain that gaze. Now, body language works, it's very important when you're presenting. So not having your hands in your pockets, not having your hands folded really helps. Open palm gesture is good. When you're talking, this is a good movement. But also make sure that there's not a lot of movement. It should not look like you're flailing your hands in the air, right? Uh, Also, do not point fingers really. Yeah. When you're calling upon people, it's again good to maybe use this gesture. This helps, right? So these are some of the non-verbal cues that you can take. Verbal cues, verbal skills that we need to put into use, of course, are how you pause, how fast are you speaking, right? You need to focus on the fillers and foghorns which are being used, like, you know, these are some of the words that we use often to fill our sentences. So be conscious, not use them, rather pause. That builds more presence, more attention in your presentation, right? So these are some verbal skills. Intonation matters a lot. How energetic do you sound? Now, when it comes to keeping your audience engaged, if you sound energetic, that's half of your work done, right? So keep that in mind. Okay. Now, handling questions is a skill. Let's say a question comes your way. First of all, you need to anticipate some of these questions. But if there's a question that's coming your way, you can always rebound that question, ask the audience, would anyone like to pick it up? This is more to do with the kind of sessions that the session that you're in. But even if it is some sort of a sales presentation, you need to kind of, anticipate the question, be ready with your answers, and engage the audience with counter questioning by sharing a little bit of knowledge, right? So that helps you build the conversation. Yeah. Okay. And virtual presentations is the new normal. So when you are presenting virtually, you need to know the tool. You need to know how exactly you're going to use different features. So there is something called a presenter mode, which works really well in Teams. What that does is you have your slide on, and in the notes section, you have the notes that you have written down, which will not be um, visible to the audience, right? So that helps you uh, use this feature really well and also be confident with the points that you need to talk about. Correct? So that's something that you can explore. Similarly, Zoom has a feature where you can just share a portion of your screen, and that way you can maybe position the chat window and some of the other windows in a way that you are able to interact with everything that's happening. Correct? So these are some of the features that I could think of to share with you when it comes to virtual presentations. And of course, your presence on the camera really, really changes a lot of things in today's world, virtual world. So be camera ready, right? Having good lighting around you matters a lot. Making sure that the audience is able to hear you really well, that helps a lot. And these are some of the aspects that you need to keep in mind. Okay. Well, the time is up. So I would like to sum it up and move on to take a look at what we learned today. So we learned planning is key to great presentations, right? And the focus should be on the purpose, audience, and time. If you understand this, you'll be able to mind map better. And building the presentation would be a breeze after that. Building a presentation, it can be a fun process, right? When you structure it really well by keeping hook, key content, and key takeaways in mind and structuring it that way. And as I said, delivering a presentation is all about how you present it. PPT or anything else that you use is just a tool. It's all about how you interact with the audience, how you engage with them, and are able to communicate the agenda and key takeaways with them, right? So that's pretty much it. I hope you took value from this. There was a video that I wanted to show you, but since we do not have time, let's move ahead. And yes, happy to take any questions that you might have. Let me go back to the chat window here. Thank you, Nitya. Thank you, Samra. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I know you might have to drop off for your other engagements and call, but if we can spare a couple of minutes, let's see if there are any questions waiting. I don't see any questions in Q&A window, so I think we are good. So, well, thank you so much, everyone. See you in maybe some other session sometime. Have a great, wonderful day and the rest of the week ahead, and enjoy your presentations. Bye bye.